My name is Abudu, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of EbonyLife Media, which is basically a media group based in Lagos, Nigeria.
When it comes to exciting glossy dramas, no one does it better.
Are you guys ready?
5 years in the game, and we're still telling our own stories.
I know your secret. It disgusts me. I will expose you.
The history of the company goes back to 2013. It was the year that we established the organization. And prior to 2013, the journey had been a long journey. And the key to our journey has always been in how do we change the narrative? How do we get our stories across? I think for centuries, Africa has remained creatively silent. And I felt that there was a need to get our stories out to a global audience. So I started toying with the idea about putting together a TV channel. But prior to a TV channel, I had a talk show on television. Of course, as they say, talk is cheap, but I'd done the talk show for nearly 10 years, and I knew the impact that having a talk show had. And I felt that the next big thing to do was to have more than just talk and create a platform through which we could engage. And I started thinking about who do I want to engage the most with? And I realized that I wanted to engage the most with that demographic aged 18 to 34, who was 60% of Africa's population. So I started looking around and what content was out there speaking to this particular demographic. And there wasn't really that much. So I went in and made a pitch to one of the largest pay TV platforms in Africa. And we came up with this incredible schedule of programming, from entertainment content to lifestyle to scripted to reality. And we had nothing. I mean, when I say year zero, we had nothing. We literally had nothing. And it was really a matter of just building teams who then had to build out the schedule, build out the programs, and get these programs onto a linear platform. Now, the reason why I can turn around today and say 6 years later we have evolved into a media group is because all the challenges that we saw, we decided that they were going to become opportunities to our organization. And we basically took the linear channel, was up and running, and the year later we launched EbonyLife Films. We've produced some of the biggest movies to come out of Nollywood. We then launched our own video on demand platform.
EbonyLife On is a new online video on demand service that is available on any mobile device, phone, tablet, or laptop.
The biggest part of our growth for us is EbonyLife Studios. And I say EbonyLife Studios because it's where we see our biggest growth. It's where we know we can see those partnerships that we can form with international organizations. For example, if you look at our deal with Sony Pictures, we've just struck a 3-year deal with Sony Pictures. And it's basically looking at 3 different scripted projects over 3 years. Now, we're also speaking to other studios in this regard because they've realized that we have the stories. We may not have the best production value in Africa, but what we do have are the stories. And I think it's about a partnership. If we can bring the stories, if the international studios can bring those great production values that they can bring to ensure that we can really take our stories to a global audience, I think it's a match made in heaven. I say that, Hollywood brings the gloss and Europe brings the grit. And it's about bringing together, the grit, the gloss, and the stories so that audiences around the world can really see that, wow, can this really be coming out of Africa?
As far back as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a doctor.
If I go back to the Tahoma Warriors, for example, I mean, these women existed centuries ago. And it's such an incredible story that they were so powerful, and they would go out and they were out there guarding the king. They were out there fighting to protect the king. I mean, they would kill somebody literally and take the skull of whoever they've killed and hold it up and say, listen, this is what I've achieved. And this was Africa centuries ago, and these were women, so you can see how fearless they were. And that story has never, ever been told. Now that's going to be coming to your screens and showing the strength of African women, in terms of what they've gone through, what they're going through, and what they can be, what they have been and what they can be. So we're really, really excited about that project. And there are 2 other projects as well that we're going to be working on with Sony, so because it's a 3 scripted deal. So that for us is really, really exciting. We have a new movie called Chief Daddy. It's about an industrialist who suddenly dies, and it's about the family's fight for his will and his fortune. So, we're doing films, we're doing TV, we've got the EbonyLife On, our video on demand platform working, we've got the studios working, and you know, we've just launched EbonyLife UK because we really believe that there should be a bigger opportunity for diversity programming. And again, we're looking for partners in that regard to say we've got these incredible stories. How do we get them to the big screen? How do we get them to the small screens? How do we get them on video on demand? So let's come together and see how we can form those partnerships and those relationships.
I want items that scream class. How many times must I say it? Money is not my problem, but how to spend it.
For 2019, I think the big thing for us is going to be EbonyLife Studios. The partnership with Sony, it will be great to see those programs, you know, getting into full development and getting into production. We have 2 other partnerships with 2 other studios that we're looking at. Again, it will be good to see that going into production. 1 major feature, as well as EbonyLife Studios and our partnerships with the global studios. I believe that's going to be the big thing for us in 2019.
I'm going to be hitting the big 5-0, and with you, the viewers, I'm going to be marking it with style.
The challenges for the African market, I believe, is that we need to understand that the market is very fragmented. And in order for us to grow, we're going to have to find a way to come together and work together as one unifying force. Because if we keep going off and doing things, you know, separately, there's no growth in that. But if we can all come together as one big force, I think we'll be a very powerful force. I think secondly, the other thing that we need to understand as African producers is that we don't have all the necessary skills that we need to ensure that we can tell global stories. We're part of the team, and as part of that team, we need to plug into the rest of the team, which could be sitting anywhere else in the world. And I think we need to get out there more and explore that team and explore those relationships. And those relationships don't just come by making 1 phone call or sending 1 email. I mean, as I keep saying to my team, we just have to keep pushing, we just have to keep going. And if you don't get a reply to that email, you know what, send another one and send another one and send another one. And just keep going and just keep building those relationships. And I think that's going to be the strongest force for us in Africa, because the thing is, we've got those stories and we just need to make sure they get told in the most authentic way. And we need to be custodians of those stories. Rather than someone telling our story looking in, we've got to make sure that we're part of the story that's being told, so that when the world sees it, they understand that these stories are authentic and they've been told with our input.